Okay, so in chapter 9 through 11, we find out that at Lowood, all the girls are coming down with typhus because of the poor conditions, and that Helen dies, and they find Jane in her bedroom with the dead body of Helen after Jane snuck out that night to go see Helen because she thought she was going to die. We also find out that Jane has a new friend, that they sit together every day at lunch in this big rock in the middle of the little pond. And that because of such bad conditions there at Lowood, they had this little investigation, and Mr. Brocklehurst is still his position because of how well respected he is, but now they have different people that kind of aid and don't let him do much of anything anymore. And so now the conditions are improving, and all the girls are not as sick anymore. And that the ones that were sick and had family went home, but just basically die. And that so many of the girls died there. And then we move on, and Helen does a skip forward in time, or Jane does a skip forward in time to when she's 18. And she's been at the school, and she learned, she was a pupil, and then she became a teacher. Now she's teaching students, and she's really good at the school. And she puts out an ad in the paper because her favorite teacher has now left her. And so she puts out an ad, and she gets a reply back, just one letter. And it's from Mrs. Fairfax, who wants this young orphan girl to be taught. They're not orphan, you don't know that yet. And so, the night that Jane is supposed to leave, Bessie comes and tells Jane about how this man who Bessie believed to be Jane's uncle came looking for her a few years ago, wanting to know her, but Mrs. Reed sent him away knowing that Jane was at school. And so then the man they thought was a wine merchant and thought was Jane's uncle went to a faraway island that was known for its wine. After all this, Bessie and Jane talk. Bessie compliments Jane on all the things she's doing, and how she's much better than Mrs. Reed and John and the two girls of Mrs. Reed, and how her paintings and her etiquette are far better than any of Reed could do. And then Jane gets to this new place where she's going to teach the girl, Adele. That's just how I'm pronouncing her name, because that's how it's spelled. She finds out that she only speaks French and doesn't really understand much or speak much English. And since Jane was well gifted in speaking French, they talk in French, and that's how she's teaching her right now. And she finds out all this information about how her parents died and how she's living with this man, and how this man is never there, and Mrs. Fairfax is kind of the housekeeper instead of the actual owner of the house. She's this really nice woman. Jane thought she was going to treat her as like this horrible person like Mrs. Reed did, but Mrs. Fairfax actually treats Jane as, a human being, and treats her really good and gives her a place to live, and just treats her really nice overall. And that's about all I got from this chapter. I don't really have any questions over like the reading or anything. It's just kind of hard to understand some of it because of the way it's written and the way it backtracks on itself. It's just confusing at some points. But other than that, all's good. Adios.